Hey guys, welcome to the 10th episode of the Awarenezzz podcast. Today we're here with our guest, Dalton Clark. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is
Introduce
awesome.
yourself to the people.
My name is Dalton Clark. I'm the Indiana Tech athletics photographer. I have come here as a freshman, so I'm in my first year out of my four, and yeah, I'm just kind of experimenting, seeing what it's like as my first year, trying to figure out the ins and outs, and getting to know everybody, and getting to know my job and my purpose here. So, and thank you guys again for bringing me on here. So.
Of course. Nah, man, we're happy to have you here. We're coming back with this podcast, recording it. And we normally do student athletes, but it's now nice to see like the person behind the scenes of those pictures, of those crazy pictures that go into the Instagram posts, into the website. So run us a little bit through that journey you had, like since you started from a young age, and then coming up, realizing that photography was what you liked, and then like routing it a little bit to sports. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So my second year in high school, I kind of became more direct with what I wanted to do in my career. I didn't really have any idea of what I wanted to do at the time, pre my sophomore year. But then I kind of drew into taking photos just on my spare time, whether it was just traveling, cars. I'm a big car guy, so.
Start with your phone, or you had a camera already?
Yeah, so I just had my phone at the time, and then I kind of went back to some small DSLR stuff that my grandpa had. So he gave me his camera before he had actually passed away that previous year. So I kind of started using that, and I was like, man, I could start something with this, maybe try it out, and bring it to a hobby first. So that started, and then I.
You say like cars? You started.
Yeah,
cars
so I'm still am a big car guy, so I'd go to car shows, car meets, go take photos for people, and I was like, man, this is kind of different.
Yeah.
Just branching out, talking to people, and when that was not my my forte, I was like, I don't like talking to people, and then I was like, wait, I kind of have to. This is the business.
You kind of started realizing. The business.
Yeah. So I started to just get really uncomfortable. And that was the biggest thing. I was like
faking it until you make it.
Well, not faking it until I make it, but because I was always like real with whoever I was talking to. I was like, this is really what I want to do. I'm passionate about it. But it's good to be uncomfortable sometimes when you're trying to develop in early stages.
Faking that confidence.
Yeah,
and you were like never like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've talked to so many people doing this, and it's been one of those things where it gets to a point where I get to be friends and family with these people. So that brings it to the next thing. I got out of my sophomore year. My junior year started. A lot of our athletics are really bringing up into our area. But let me preface: I'm from LaPel High School, Anderson, Indiana, and our sports programs are pretty good. We had a lot of state finalists.
Yeah, we saw a lot of those pictures in your
and I have nothing but appreciation for the athletic department that kind of led me to this. They supported me throughout my high school journey, and I have nothing but just thanks and appreciation for a lot of the journey I had with them, and the love and support I got. That really built to who I am today. Go ahead.
How did it work? Like that you worked to school together? Did you approach them, or did they approach you?
So I actually just started. Past all my car photography and just wanting to do it as a hobby. I went to a high school game, a high school basketball game one day, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to try to take photos of sports. Just trying to do that, and
just a random basketball game.
Yeah, just at my high school, and it was great. I had a lot of fun. I researched how and what to do when I'm doing this, just on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't asked to. They didn't reach out to me. They didn't really know who I was at the time. They didn't really have any hired on photographers. We had community photographers, and I became one. And speaking of that, I met one of my best friends, mentors. His name's Brian Gill. He led me to be kind of the person I am today. He met me that day on that court when when I was taking photos of that game, and he just became a big mentor in my life. And he honestly saved it at some points because he gave me a lot of ins and outs on life, whether it was just with cameras, with photography. And you know what? That's important to have a kind of a role model to look at and say, hey, like, I want to be like this person. How can I?
Just mentioned you also before, you just watch on YouTube and stuff, and then you have like a real person who can give you advice. It's really very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, YouTube is one thing, and that kind of goes into the conversation of you can just educate yourself on photography. And you don't need certain education for it. I'd say, you know, YouTube can only go so far. Online research can only go so far with it. You really need a hands-on experience and the people that are in your industry to teach you.
And then we've had like for most of the podcasts we've had, most of the time there's always somebody in the family that has owned the sport. So they have like that direct contact.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be in your family, in your inner circle all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like how important, like for those people, it was very important to find that person or to have that person in their life that already went through that could teach those experiences to them. How important do you think? And like, what was the thing that this mentor of yours helped you the most? What do you think is the biggest lesson you learned from him?
I'm trying to think. It's a good question. I just think that
Or some of them.
Well, no, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I had so many lessons and just kind of like sit downs and talks after games and after, you know, moments of just stress and long nights, you know, just to kind of, you know, don't overwhelm yourself with anything you're trying to think about in the long run. You know, just be who you are. Be passionate about what you're trying to create and who you're trying to.
Something that sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. You're good.
Something that like us, like young people that want to maybe achieve something. That was your case, and that's your case still, I believe.
Yeah.
It's kind of like impatience, you know, because at the beginning we don't have a lot of knowledge, we don't have a lot of resources. So I think, as you mentioned, he was talking you to like take it easy, like settle down, because he's already done through that, and he knows that probably at the end, if you put in the work, that's gonna happen. But it's hard at the beginning. Was it hard for you?
Yeah, it was extremely hard, and still is to this day. You know, I always want to get, you know, what I'm going after just now. And you know, I've had sit downs here and talk to people, and it's just like that's not the reality. I mean, no matter where you go, even at a bigger institution, not like Indiana Tech, but like, you know, a D1 or a bigger program that just has the tools on hand for just anything you ask for. And right now it's a work in progress. But anyways, back to what I was talking about with kind of how I got here. So junior year happens. I start to, you know, get my foundation with all the people around me, my community.
Started building that like circle.
I mean, you know, and we had a small school, a small class of people that graduated. So it was a very, you know, I knew everybody, and they knew me from just, you know, the circulating effect that I had with photography and the things I was creating.
Every athlete would know you because they would probably reach out to you for the pictures afterwards.
Well, yeah, and you know, I had a website running at the time that they could access photos online.
Okay.
You know, it was free. But then a year after that, my senior year, I got a call from my local newspaper, the Herald Bulletin, down the road in Madison County.
We saw that you were.
And that was a great turning point for me, because then that led me to realize that it's more than just
the hobby.
Yeah, the hobby. And you know, I knew I could build a career out of it.
So they reached out to you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they reached out to me and said, would you like to freelance for us? Right. And that was a big turning point, like I said, because, you know, I didn't know what it, you know, I knew the business, but I didn't know it into like freelance photojournalism. Okay. Because when you get into magazine, newspaper, it's a whole different thing. Yeah. So it comes from, you know, normal just sports photos taking, just taking pictures of just action, to now you're working for a news outlet, a news source that is requiring you to caption photos, tell a story through photos.
Okay. Yeah, because you're trying to tell a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to write about it afterwards.
Yes, yeah, and that really led me to be more intricate with what I was trying to capture. So now every time I take, my time to take photos or at an event, I try to tell a story behind it, because
that's interesting.
yeah, because it really kind of led to something else with, cultivating a story behind images, because that's really why, we take pictures. We want to tell a story by them. We obviously want to just keep them, but in the whole grand scheme of my job, it's really just to tell a story.
Sounds like a very valuable lesson. So you went from like taking just surface level, probably the nice pic, trying to see the nice angle, to like actually looking to tell a story through your picture.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the bigger deal that people nowadays want to take for that job. And that was a really big turning point. I got to cover a lot of great events through them, through their business. And just I wasn't a full staff member, but freelancing, you can still get different offers to cover events that are pretty high up. I got to cover a few things. Just to mention off the top of my head, I got to shoot a WNBA game, actually 2 times.
Dalton Clark.
Yeah, that was
also Sabrina there.
That was a really cool moment. But I'd actually been to, because the event was at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis.
Yeah, Indianapolis.
And that was really cool because, I'd actually been there before for an event for a women's basketball state finals event, because our women's basketball team from Lapel, they had previously gone. So I know how it felt to be there at that stage, but not for a pro league game.
It was a totally different.
It was totally different. Yeah. So, so when I tell people that have not gone to these events, it's like, I know what it feels like to go to a women's basketball game there, but I also know what it feels like to go to a pro league game there. 2 different things, but at the same time, you really have to just, be in your own headspace and act like it's, the state finals game. I mean, they're both still important events, but on the other hand, you're covering an event for, the WNBA game, and then now you're doing this. It's just, keep it on the same level.
Okay.
So I just try to keep it headspace on that, is what I tell them. But yeah.
Do you have different preparations for like different sports, for example? Or like maybe you go to the same stadium, it's like, oh, I know these angles were good. Or...
Yeah. So I'll kind of make it about here at Indiana Tech, because we have a lot of different facilities here.
Yeah.
Lighting situation. I take time to just kind of prepare my mind for whatever I'm doing the day of, like an hour before. Whether that's just kind of thinking about what I need to do, what I want to accomplish with this, if I have different ideas for photos. Getting something different every game when you shoot so many is a little bit different. It's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
But I always try to figure out something that's more creative in that time. I like to just look at what's going on that day. But yeah, I'd say the visual things that I look at are lighting, what teams are playing, if it's outside or inside. Those are 2 different, things that.
And with the weather now.
So, if we have a women's or men's soccer game outside, depending on who they're playing, what the weather is, if it's pouring rain, won't be as fun of a day. But no, you just have to prepare for that. I have rain gear that I have for my cameras. Just getting ready for any weather. And then if it's inside, just managing everything that's going on inside the stadium or a gym like ours. So
of course.
Going back to the newspaper company, or like when they hired you or like approached you, how was like the experience going, like from doing your own stuff, like going to the games you want to go, and like change like someone, or did they tell you what the projects are they wanted to take photos for, or was like? So
they would actually assign me every week. I'd get an assignment or assignments based on what was happening that week around our county. And it would either be like, go shoot or go photograph this men's basketball game against so and so over here. And then tomorrow you go here for a women's game, and it was for all types of different sports around the year. I got picked up in early.
They assign you to different events.
Yeah, based on different rates too. I fortunately got paid through that, and that was very nice.
Yeah.
Freelancing is a tough thing because it's not a very well paid career.
Yeah.
I've looked at that and said there are different things that kind of overlap on that, which I'm satisfied with. The experience being one of them, and then two, just the people that you meet along the ways, as far as that goes. But yeah, it would be based on assignments, and then what you need to do that week.
Was it as fun as being like, let's say, independent, doing your own stuff?
So really, you are independent when you get to do freelancing. But I do know what you mean. I got to kind of do a bit of both. So I still got to work for the newspaper or whoever I was working for at the time. And I also got to make the galleries I was giving these athletes at Lapel High School.
Okay.
That is not really common, but they let me do that just because I was doing it for so long. I didn't want to interrupt that based on just my needs or their needs for me at this media outlet.
How important would you say that? Do you think that going to that newspaper opened to you a lot of doors? Because then that was what allowed you to go, for example, to cover the WNBA NBA game, right?
Yeah. So
from there, do you think that maybe your short career, but still kind of like took a leap upwards?
Yeah, absolutely. That, and like when I say a turning point, that's what I definitely mean. It was a turning point because I got to meet so many people in that industry, and I got to just be around so many great creators and journalists in that area. It led me to talk to some people in Indianapolis, even up here. It just, the people that you meet along the way, just so gratifying because they want to help you, and you obviously want to help them and get any information that you can get. Just talking normally, just talking shop about cameras, photography.
Is there anything, because it's also not only helpful for photographers but also for everybody when you're in these events with high level people probably that have been more experienced than you? Is there anything specific? Do you come with any frame of mind with anything specific you're trying to look for in those people, or are you just open to hear what they have to say? Like, what's your frame of mind coming to these events, these people that already know more about you?
So at bigger pro events, or I guess pro venues, so like let's say an NBA arena, it's called a venue, and they'll have different rooms for media.
Okay.
And when you step into that media room, I like to just kind of put myself low because I'm experienced, but I'm not experienced as a 20-year-old veteran and whatever they're trying to do as a photographer.
Of course,
And me being 19, it's tough because people look at me and say, he's young, he doesn't get it yet. I get it to a certain extent, but I'm not going to bring myself out and say, oh, I'm better than anybody right now, because even if I meet somebody tomorrow and they're not as experienced as me, I like to just pick their brain on saying, hey, what do you know? Like, how can I help you? How can you help me?
And if you try to act like you know it all, probably you close the doors to people sharing knowledge with you.
Yeah, and there are always going to be people in this industry that don't, gatekeeping is, it's tough. But people, everybody I've met in my industry has been very outgoing.
That's nice.
And
also the community is also competitive at the higher level games. Like, I don't know, how does it work? Like, you have your own spot for the game?
Yeah.
Everyone is fighting for the best spots, maybe.
So, like, on the court, basically, whatever spot you get on the court to shoot from. So,
but they assign it to you?
Yeah.
So it's not like a fight that everybody's losing?
Well, it just depends on where you go. Because, for example, I'm trying to think. At a normal college level for, like, NCAA, NAIA, they won't really have a spot for you.
So you have to be there, like, 10 hours before.
Well, no, I mean, you can, and I'll get to that in a minute, but you can show up and you can just kind of hope. I mean, it just depends on how big of an event it is.
Okay.
So if it's an NCAA championship game and you get there an hour before kickoff, you're not going to have a great spot.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
the media pool for that event is going to be vast. You're going to have guys that are from national media outlets like Associated Press, USA Today. They're all going to be covering this certain event for whoever they need it for.
Okay.
Like Getty. Are you familiar with Getty?
Yeah, get images.
So so they always
That's
have
probably like every image.
On
That's
every-
Yeah.
in the internet.
Yeah, so they always carry staff photographers in different states.
Okay.
And those guys are usually they're like the bigger media outlets like Getty, USA Today, Imaging, and then AP. Those guys are staffers, and they get spots usually.
Okay.
But if I show up as a freelancer, it's a little bit different because you get to pick and choose where you kind of go. But obviously, spots are taken, so you mind that. And
Did you ever get into a fight?
no,
Like an
no.
argument or anything?
I've never had a bad interaction with trying to get a court spot or a high venue spot.
I mean, I think it just ties back to what we were just talking about of acknowledging that there's people that probably have been in this game for longer than me.
Yeah.
And just like laying back and into that learning frame of mind. And something that we've talked about like this past podcast, and I think it's a very important thing is, for example, past podcast with Brady Titus, the basketball player. He talked that some of the most important things that he could do with, for example, professors here, is just ask questions. So I don't know, maybe in your case, you come as a new guy. Do you think? Do you normally ask a lot of questions to these people that are in the probably more time in that field of yours?
Yeah, I mean, I like to I ask probably more than enough questions when I like to meet people.
Yeah.
I actually, so for example, I had a educational workshop in Indianapolis 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool moment because I got to talk to so many different people around the states and just ask a lot of questions, just be present. Make connections. That's the most important thing that I think about when I try to just look at who I want to be and how big of an impact I can make on somebody's career and my career. Because when you meet these people, you should always be interested in who they are and where they come from, because they always have different stories. And because I got to meet people from Indiana University, Michigan University, some guys from Florida University. And that's when you step down and say, hey, like I want to learn about this and that. It's a cool moment getting to do that.
I wanted to touch that point because, like, I suppose like not everybody has the chance to be besides high level people at a young age as you have had. So I wanted to know, like, maybe if you had the chance to like ask a lot of questions, which you have, and it's something that I really think is gonna help you along the way. It has helped you because you've been to places I've seen you photograph Paul Skeens, MLB All-Star, Dalton Clark, and it's taken you to places. So I think that approach you have of like just like listening and saying like, okay, I'm here to learn. I'm just gonna show my stuff by my work, but I'm just here to learn. I think is what's really gonna take you like to a higher level,
Yeah, and that's always the best thing about what I get to do is just learn from the different people I get to meet. And then obviously taking great photos is one thing, but then turning around and saying how good of an impact can I make on whatever I'm shooting. Because that's really why I'm here at Indiana Tech, and that's the greater purpose I think I have now is just creating a program, creating the groundworks to start just put the hand in the bucket for what I want to do with photography here, the creative side of everything that we have. I work very closely with our sports information department to fulfill any like game recaps. A lot of our galleries are managed by me, so it definitely takes it takes an army, but the army is still being built. So it's right now. I mean, it's just.
But it's great that you have the intent of doing all those things.
Yeah.
You're not just here to take pictures, but you have like a goal in mind, something that you want to accomplish. It's really cool.
Yes. So I mean that's taken me to a lot of places, and especially here, because I'll even go back to kind of when I left high school. So we'll go back to that. I wanted to kind of touch on how I got here.
Yeah.
We can go back to like my senior year when I got done, in May of last year. So May of 2024,
Yeah.
graduated. Then I started an internship in Indianapolis through Free Press Indiana, and that was a program, an internship that could build my journalist skill sets and to be more of in a career.
Yes.
We got to cover great stories around Indianapolis, and that was fun. I got to work in a team. And then I had another question of where do I want to take everything else. So I actually got reached out by a LaPel High School and Indiana Tech alum in December of 2023.
Yeah.
And she mentioned Indiana Tech and how it could take me somewhere big and what I could probably do here.
Okay.
And I, ashamed enough, I just completely ignored it until like May. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I was like, I'm trying to figure it out. I didn't know what I could even do. I looked it up and I was like, man, this is a good way to go. But I'm just gonna wait and see what my options are.
You were still waiting for
because it was
all the opportunities.
and it was very
Your
cool.
goal
It was
was to go to college, huh?
what's that?
Your goal was to go to college and
My goal was to go to college and not have excruciating debt after 4 years.
Okay.
And I'll get into that in a minute, but it's just me paying for my college, and it's just it's kind of a one-man show in a sense of how I wanted to take my college.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I said to myself, if I'm lucky enough to find somewhere that would take me in and say, we're going to help you, and we're going to try to figure out what the best role for you is on some assistance financially. I prayed for it for a while, and for that gap from getting that message through the time I was trying to spend figuring out what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
My prayer was definitely answered in the summer when I got, the mind to just go back to that person and say, hey, is this option still available?
Okay.
And
after 6 months.
Yeah. Well, and in a sense, I was like, because I always think back to that. I'm like, man, what if I didn't take it? Shame on me for not really answering the call right then and there. But I just, I've talked to myself about it, and it's just like, well, I wouldn't have changed it because it worked out well for one, and two, it built some sort of confidence and some reliance on what I needed to do and trying to figure it out, the hardship that kind of led me to that. So I built on that. Summer comes around, I end my internship, it goes well.
Yeah.
And then I start to finalize, what I want to do here, what they want me to do here. And they assisted me so well with getting in here, putting my feet down and just running right off the bat. They gave me the keys very early, and I'm so internally grateful for that. It was not.
They helped you from the beginning.
Yeah, and if without, and I'll mention her, Emily Eppert was the one who helped me. She's a Indiana Tech alum that I just mentioned. She played volleyball here, and I'm so thankful for that connection because she saw what I was doing at my high school level, and she saw that I could probably do it here at a different level. So. Shout out to her. So
you have to probably send it to her. So
So
you wanted to. They waited 6 months.
And I told her that. And I told her that I'm like, man, I don't know what I would have done if
people will see the work; they'll judge by themselves.
Yeah,
take very good pictures. Bro,
so it that helps. But I just got my ground. I got the ground going here, and there are definitely things that I want to change, that I want to improve in myself. Now
we're here.
And I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
Anybody else at a bigger institution or a bigger school, I don't think I would have been gifted the opportunities I've been given here.
Okay.
We've in my time here from August of last year, we've already made 2 national appearances, whether it be in 2 it was cross country and volleyball, and I got to cover volleyball. Women's volleyball, and that was such a cool moment to just travel. And we got to travel to Kokomo and just and they had fun down there. I had fun down there covering the event, and it was just great. And that stuff, that's the good stuff. But the greater stuff is just getting to know everybody.
Yeah.
I've been greeted with open arms here.
Yeah.
A lot of the media day stuff isn't necessarily controlled by me, but I dip my hand in the bucket with the creative side of that,
Right.
And that's always fun too.
Yeah.
Because that's when you get to know everybody. And I got to meet some great people throughout just everything being here. They're half a year in, it's been great.
And then tell us how it is like to go like with a team on a road trip, like be on the road like for maybe a weekend sometimes.
Yeah, so when I travel with different teams across Indiana Tech, it's usually if they ask me to cover a big event. We had WAC conference finals for women's volleyball in Grand Rapids. I had gone to go cover that with them, and it was a great time. It just something like that you take a lot of appreciation in because they're appreciative that you came to cover the event because it's not really been the case here previously, so it's
that's
special.
what I was gonna say. Like this year, I didn't know you at the beginning of the year, but I started noticing that all the pictures like started to increase in level, that they started to look better, and now that they're you're traveling with them, like you can definitely see the difference on like that photography part.
Yeah, and that's what I go back to, just telling a story and everything else that I like to do with my photos.
Yeah.
That takes a really big part of it.
Yeah.
But traveling with teams is fun. I don't get to do it often, but it's always special when I get to. I never really try to necessarily because I've got a lot of stuff going on here with home games and work.
Yeah.
With also just getting my education here and classes.
Yeah.
That's a big factor. So if it's a really big event, nationals, WAC conference final, I'll go out there and we can cover events. But in the future when we get more people to come in and assist, then it'll be a bigger thing where we can travel with different teams.
Also experience with like the team, you travel with them, but how like are you really like a part of the team? Like I don't know, you have dinner with them or lunch with them?
So usually that's the case. If we ever go on trips, I get to stop in with them and just get lunch or dinner, wherever the case may be. I get fed with the team, so I'm like with the team, and it's great because they just treat me as one of their own, and they understand that.
Yeah.
So that's always cool, just to sit down and talk with them. As I'm a student here as well, that's also a big key. Is just trying to figure out what the difference is in my work and understanding people, and my personal life with classes and education, and just living the college life that I can regularly do.
Definitely.
So I like to create that separation, but in times like that, I like to just sit down and talk with people and just have a good time.
I assume it's really cool, but like going from being a photographer, like being alone most of the times, and then like having a team feeling with being
and that's a aspect
that they've welcomed you.
And that's an aspect that I actually haven't thought about yet. That's a good point because I wasn't alone at a time, but I did have friends and mentors and just people around the industry that I could talk to and be around on the courts and wherever I was, covering events. But I never really got. I'd always had connections or personal connections with people in high school and the different traveling arrangements that I had. Because I'd traveled with teams previously, but not at a bigger level than this. It's just great. It's I can understand and get to know people better.
I think it's great, and people can take a very big lesson from this because you're very big on building connections and taking advantage of that opportunity of being around experienced people. So like not just take it for granted, but like get the experience, like to get to know the people. And then you find those mentors that are the ones that are going to help you with those things that you cannot find in YouTube. You cannot find on Google. That is somebody that has already gone through it. And that's why you're open to when you start building those connections. So I think it's something very important for people to know.
Yeah, and if I could give a key piece of advice here with that, it's build whatever career you want to get in, because past high school, college, just being an athlete, you kind of have to shift into a whole different gear of being not an athlete. So you have to kind of career build in a sense, whether it's internships, just a job, really just dive in and see what you can do to create a good impact, find out what your role might be, purpose.
Yeah.
It's different getting to a new spot and having no really purpose in that moment, but you find it very quick when you realize the people around you that are just trying to do the same thing you are. But yeah, building that connection pool is one of the best things you can do in my position as far as in my career and industry.
I think in every field of life.
Oh yeah,
probably one of the best.
Yeah,
just building up your own network, like with,
Yeah.
the bigger the network is, the more opportunities you can get.
Yeah, that's what I tell guys and girls that want to get into this when they ask me, hey, like, what's the biggest advice, piece of advice that you could give me? And I just say networking. You just don't compare yourself to other people as well. I still do, unfortunately, but I like to just compare myself to other people around me in the industry. And it's a tough battle because, you want to do these great things that other people are doing, that are creating images, but at a certain point, you kind of have to step down and say, this is what I'm doing. It's good enough. Okay. And that's the thing that people really don't understand is you are good enough. Where's the room for improvement? What can you do tomorrow?
And maybe something that I've heard is not looking at their situation, what they're doing at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Probably doesn't relate with you.
Yeah.
But then looking what they did when they were at your position, and then probably you can learn better from that.
Yeah.
And then try to replicate that. I mean, if you want to get to that position, trying to replicate that behavior.
There's also like two times of comparing. Like one time you can compare and say, oh my God, I do this so much worse, and I'm not doing this good. Then you can do that of comparing and say like, okay, he does this, I can improve on this part.
Yeah.
Like that's how you see it and how you compare it.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's a tough battle when you're trying to start up and when you're really trying to put your feet in the ground for the first time. Because I started when I was younger, and I really I led throughout my high school year with this, and that was a more impressive piece that everybody told me as people I met older people in the industry. They applauded how young I was and how young I was doing this, because they understood that they wish they had started at my age, but they didn't. And that's just huge leverage that you can have.
Of course.
And I don't take it for granted, because
compound.
I don't take it for granted, because it's if I didn't have it, I don't know where I'd be. Without what I can do with photography and the stuff I've been doing and the relationships that I have now, I would be a totally different person. Just like any person would be in a career. It's really just I'm so blessed to be a part of a bigger operation than I was previously, and it's just so fun.
And that's like a very good, like, something that I really encourage people, like people my age, and something that you've done is just starting. Like if you have an idea, just start working towards it. Like you did it. We've been trying to do it. Because it's only gonna get harder. So might as well just take the chance that you're young. You don't have many responsibilities. You probably don't have kids to feed. You don't have a wife. So, like, starting now, like, of course you're not gonna be an expert at the beginning, but you'll start finding it out and like figuring it out, and that's what you've done. That's what like we've seen in our experience. So just encouraging people just to take action, because then they'll find the answers. Then you look back 3 years from now, 4 years from now, you'll say, "Oh, I'm so thankful I started like so early."
I mean, you just have to take like your first step, and then you have to see from there like something changes.
Exactly.
If you see a big goal, you're always like, oh my God, like this can happen. I don't know if I should do it, but like if you just started, then you're gonna figure your way out.
And that's like the problem, like what you mentioned before, like comparing yourself to higher level people. I think it's probably one of the best things you can do, but it can be a double-edged sword.
Because
absolutely. Then it can either take motivation out for you, because you see their knowledge, you see what they're doing, but you don't see how they started. So maybe seeing it as Matt said, replicating. Okay, I can get better at this, get better at this. They're not getting motivated because they're on a higher level than you. Because of course, if they've been doing it for 20 years, they're gonna be better than you.
Yeah, and
so
that was
being humble and
yes.
like taking the learning from it. I think it's probably one of the best things that somebody can do.
Absolutely, and it's just one of those things where, you know, if I get to, like with a workshop and wherever I get to go, or wherever I get to meet at these places, you know, that's the biggest thing, is just getting to know the people, because there's always a story that, or there's always something that you don't know about a person.
Yeah.
And when, like you said, you know, you look at the people that are built up now, but what do they have to go through before?
Exactly.
And when people look at me, they look at, you know, what I'm doing now, but they don't know what I had to go deal with before.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of just, you know,
talk to me about that.
You know, a lot of just trying to find the right people to surround myself with.
Yeah.
You know, when like going back to like the mentor I had.
Yeah.
Still very present in what I'm trying to do here, always just keeping advice, but, you know, when I didn't have that, it was a lot of dark times in which I really didn't have a lot of assistance. It was really me at times, and that was what kind of developed me.
Would you say, like, maybe at that moment you felt lonely?
Yeah.
And that you didn't have somebody that you can just ask questions to?
Yeah, and it was just to surround myself with just people that were passionate about the same thing I was, and then when I found people that did, that totally changed the way I thought.
Game changer, right?
You know, you really have to shift into a different gear of being mature, being, you know, not shifting into a different person, but you know, creating your maturity, because that's one thing that is, you know, it's tough on young guys like me, because not a lot of people have had adversity at a level where they can just learn from it and, you know, come back from it with a different mindset. And you know, I meet people like that, and that's good because they didn't have to go through it. But I can tell when somebody talks to me about certain things, and, you know, they get to a certain point, and it's like, well, that didn't happen for me. So it's like, you know, with different people my age in this position, as photography goes, you know, it's tough because you see people that have been given different things amongst, you know, whether it's just, you know, parents, you know, family, you know, different things that have been given to them.
Definitely.
Sometimes it's hard to look at that and swallow that, but at a certain point, that's not me, and I'm glad I had the hardship and to go through the big humps of life, and just having to find, you know, the end of a battle that I was going through for a long time, and that was either through just a lot of anxiety or just certain thoughts that I had trying to get through, you know, the foundation of where I was going, trying to find out, you know, what I could get into with a career, because I always had a mindset of, you know, I want to get to it now. I want to get to it now, and
being impatient.
Yeah, and that's the curator of a bad mindset.
And the thing is that you don't really appreciate it until you look back now.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and I'll always look back at my different photos that I've taken over the year, whether it be on my socials or my different photos, and I'm like, man, that was so fun.
Yeah, like you remember the situation you were at the moment.
Yeah, and you know, I remember when I tried sports photography for the first moment. I still remember where I was. But I also remember like
very different.
Yeah, and I remember those moments more than I remember the bigger moments. Like I couldn't really tell you what I did, what I was thinking when I photographed, you know, a wedding, because I've done different sports stuff, and I've done different portrait stuff with weddings, and different, you know, graduation and senior photos, which is a different thing. We'll get into that in a minute, but that's different. You know, you get to do different things with that, but you remember the most when you were developing and when you were just trying to get through it.
Like, oh man, I remember this day my camera died and I had to figure it out. Like, so I can imagine something.
Yeah, stuff like that. Not like traumatizing things, but it's more the stuff that it's like, man, that really sucked.
Yeah,
like
like probably like a lot of self-doubt at the start because you said you didn't have a mentor, like someone to talk to, like just you in the YouTube videos probably. So I don't know, maybe you questioned yourself a lot of at the start. Was that
Yeah.
also like a problem for you, or
So, like, asking questions at the start was a problem, or what?
like having self-doubt because you didn't have someone to give you advice or like give you feedback on stuff?
Doubting yourself.
Doubting, yeah. So that's always a tough thing with individual people that want to try something like this, or I guess it's more of a I'm trying to think of the word. Anyways, it's like starting up something on your own, and just that mindset of doubt. Overcoming a lot of things. That was tough because I didn't really have until then a lot of ways that I could look and say, hey, like, this is going to be all right. What did you do wrong? Maybe I did do this wrong. But down the road, after you really get to know your connections and your networking and the people that want to help you, then it helps a lot. So, and it goes back on that piece of advice, if you don't have these networking opportunities and these connections, then who do you go on to ask the questions to? Because that's the biggest thing, asking advice, that's just the biggest tool in your tool belt when you're trying to do this.
It's probably like one of the biggest leverage things you can do.
Yeah.
Because like probably people say you learn from experience, but when you build these connections, you learn from the experience from other people.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to leave them.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you're going to live through hardships, through different experiences, but then you save so much time and so much effort by being around these people that can really help you because they've already gone through it,
Yes.
And I wanted to touch back, brother, in the sports bar here in the university now. That you run a lot of teams, you run a lot of high-level athletes. I don't know if there are some type of behaviors that you can see when you're around them, like some things that you notice from those people that have maybe inspired you in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what actually one of the biggest things when I got here, I learned because, at the high school level, and I was like this too, I wasn't very mature.
Okay.
And a lot of high school kids are not. And that's okay. Some are,
college,
yeah. And some are still going through that, and that's okay. Everybody goes through that dip in life, and but you get here, and the switch is flipped. A lot of people are mature, and you still have those few that are not, and that's okay. But a lot of them are, and a lot of them have been through bigger pieces of life, and seniors, juniors. I mean, they're getting at an age now where they've almost seen it all at their time. Not like they're 50 or 60 years old, but they still have seen more than I have, and that's still insight that I can get on. So I guess I'll go back to this example. Different behaviors and what people do to inspire me by that. When I got here, my first ever, I guess, job or time here was our first media day for our athletics. It was for women's soccer, men's soccer, and women's volleyball.
Yeah.
Around August, and I got to meet all these different people, that were seniors, juniors, and I talked to them. I was nervous as crap. I was like, man, because I had driven an hour and 30 minutes from back home because I wasn't moved in yet, and I was thinking the whole way down here or whole way up here, I was like, man, if this doesn't go good, I was like, oh shoot, yeah. So when I got here, just met with open arms and going on about different behaviors and that, I don't really detect like stuff like that, but the behaviorisms that I get when I talk to people, that's the biggest thing I see.
Okay.
It's not more or less, what they're doing around other people and
probably like their mindset.
Yeah. I mean, their mindset, sometimes I ask about mindsets and whatnot, and I'll touch on that in a minute, but it's more or less, how kind and how outgoing they are to me.
Okay.
Because the first ever day I had, I was almost lost, and I was like, man, this is gonna be rough. But I met different people, and they just, they helped me out in whichever way they could.
Okay.
So off the bat, I know these people are just, they're mature. They know that, not to be like, I guess, selfish. I never got that here. I don't think I ever will. So that's the biggest thing. Selflessness. Being kind of in your own group. I get to sit down with our volleyball teams. I think I draw towards.
I always see you.
Yeah, I think I draw towards them a little bit better, just because I know a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they just, I mean, everybody likes what I'm doing to a certain point. But they have reached out to me, and when you can sit down at lunch and dinner with them, then you're getting to a different level of how can you connect with these people? How can you make friends? And that hasn't really been a big obstacle for me, which is great.
I can tell you from a perspective of an athlete, everyone loves the photographer.
Yeah.
Every time I see one taking photos, I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, I think you're doing a great job for the university.
Thank you.
Like when people go on the website or like Instagram, like I don't know if every picture is from you, but like.
So
that's what I said. Like, it looks so much different.
Yeah.
Like the pictures are very nice, because
in the end,
we've been trying to pick, like, how we pick like the thumbnail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the level of the pictures, you can tell like from the pictures down.
Yeah,
thank you. This year they just look like a different level.
Right? In the end, that's the thing. People like want to come to university. That's what they see at the first.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing I tell people that are wanting to. Fund our operation and get, see what the benefit is. And I always tell them, it's like, this is a big recruiting thing. Like your athletes are getting so much help with recruiting and coaches because of these photos. And I'm not just saying it's just because of me, but that's a big hand in it.
It's all marketing.
Yeah, marketing. Yeah, absolutely. And just, our marketing department, they hold our galleries and they use them for whatever they need. Social media, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to help out on that stuff, but that's not that. I mean, that's like the base of what I like, why I do it, and because I mean it's fun for me. It's a career builder thing, but they obviously get the photos, the videos, the whatever.
Like I get love at first sight if you see like nice pictures.
Yeah.
I mean, if I go to if I want to transfer to a new university
and
I don't see any good pictures of the university, I'm like. If I don't want to offer anything, I'm not going to go there. Yeah,
and it's good to have different people on it. It's not just me currently. It was at a certain point, just me trying to create these galleries images, but we're adding on different people that want to do it.
Perfect.
And I'll say now, if you ever want to do this what I'm doing here or anywhere, it's tough, but there are different steps and different ways you can always help, and keep the same goals that you had, but you can also add on, your efforts and your passion to what we're doing here. And that's when I tell people that want to do this here, especially, it's like, do you have the right mindset to do it? Do you want to do it for a reason beyond you, or are you just here to do it for yourself? Are you here to just do it for a certain reason that's not, for the university? Because it really has to come down to it's beyond you. And this is beyond me, because I'm helping university, I'm helping the athletes, helping the coaches, do whatever they want with the images, and it obviously helps me. It helps my career building. It helps my career entirely, because I'm a freshman here. I'm getting my education here as well, so that's a whole different opportunity that not a lot of people get. And when I tell them that they can have these same opportunities, not the same level, but they can still help and create, but they have to have a mindset in which, they're not thinking about themselves in the moment.
Like, I want to get paid this.
Yeah.
Brother, I think it's great that you ask those questions more related towards the mindset they have, towards the frame of mind they come with. Because at the end of the day, like as we've talked around all this, like throughout all these podcasts, like they're not gonna be experts, and like we've come to know like how good you are, how good you've become, but it's all because of your mindset and the frame you have of just being open to knowledge and having an intent with it. And that's what you're trying to do here. You have a bigger goal than just filling your ego, or just getting the money. Of course, it's important to get money. It's nice to get money, but you have a bigger intent, and that's what really help you progress. Like
Yeah.
you're starting to build a different team. It's because you're doing things with that intention of just getting better for yourself and getting the program better. And I think that's ultimately what drives people to success.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. It's and it comes with, because I mean I'll always say this, but I am mature at my age, and that's what people tell me.
Yeah.
Anywhere I go, if I usually meet them, and I like to, and it's not an act, but it's more of like a lesson, because I've learned what it is to be, not mature in a sense of where, if I don't act this way, I'm not helping myself.
Yeah.
And, that maturity comes with, career building. It comes with being something that you can have somebody to aspire to be.
And I think that also relates to what we talked about. I mean, because you also saw that behavior in athletes, that they were mature. I think that comes with just the fact that you're trying to build something bigger.
Yeah.
It makes you go through those setbacks that at the end of the day, or those experiences that at the end of the day are what turns you into a mature person.
Yeah.
So I think that's a behavior that you see in people that from a young age want to do something. They want to do something different with their lives, which is something that you're doing, and you have gone through all these situations that have turned you into the person that are today, that will turn you into even a better person in the future.
Absolutely.
So I think all that comes with being able to go through all those setbacks, because you have that intentional mind of who you want to become and what you want to achieve.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, brother. No, I think this podcast, bro, I think it's been like, at the beginning I was like, okay, we haven't done it with somebody that's not an athlete. I don't really know what's gonna happen. I think the lessons that you've told us, they really apply to every aspect of life.
Yeah.
It's the biggest ones for me were mainly the importance of being open to advice from different people that are more experienced than you.
Yeah.
That comes with building the right connections. Also, the fact that at the beginning you're not gonna know it all.
Yeah.
So you have to be very open and always receiving of those, and taking the chances that you have. You had the chances of being in a WNBA game, of taking pictures to different people. So not just using that to then post it and say, "Oh, I was here."
Yeah.
But then at the moment that you're there, taking advantage of the high level people that are around you.
Yeah.
And that's what you've done ultimately. And
absolutely.
It's taking you to places, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And that's always, and there are different people that, they might not want to do exactly what I'm doing, as because I like to bring in key points of, certain photojournalistic aspects, tell a story. Yeah. Some people not want.
That was another key aspect.
Yeah. People might not want to do that, and that's okay. But that's a really big part of, creating the right images and creating a good background in it, because that's where the careers really are pushing towards in this industry, is more photojournalism. So with bigger outlets like that, bringing it back to staff options with bigger media outlets like Getty, AP, that's a goal of mine. I'd like to do that one day, or just kind of keep my position like this, where I'm at a staff position. I'm not currently, but in after college, after I get my education here, it could be that somewhere.
You still have 3.5 years.
Yeah.
You started almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Probably. Now you have more knowledge. You have more people.
Yeah.
So you'll have more leverage. So you'll be able to get even better. So you'll probably be in that situation.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
by just by talking to you and listening to you, the mindset that you have of just not doing it to get money, just not doing it as a hobby, but to having some intent with it, and to always try to find ways to make it better. Not I don't know, trying to tell a story through the picture.
Yeah.
Doing the preparation that you usually do. I think that's if you do stuff the right ways consistently throughout the time, it's just gonna compound, and you're gonna keep building those connections.
Another takeaway for the listeners, I think you mentioned early on, you were in the most extroverted person, talking to other people, but and you said in order to grow, you have to do something which is uncomfortable for you. I think that's something really important.
Yeah.
That's what you also been throughout your whole career now, which helped you a lot.
Yeah, breaking through that barrier is the biggest thing, because in our generation, it's definitely, shyness is becoming more common, which is okay. That's okay. I wish I was at a time, but in this, you kind of have to break out of the bubble and just say, hey, how can we get out of that? How can I, just get out of my comfort zone?
You probably won't regret it now. Starting.
Yeah, I do not. Yeah, it's created so many friendships and just relationships, and I'm so thankful for. So
yeah, recognizing something that's probably holding you back and saying, okay, I need to do this if I want to get to that place. So the beginning, of course, is not going to be easy, but then just like kind of like hustling your way, and then you're going to be way more comfortable as soon as you get the reps, as soon as you get the reinforcement that things are working, that you're getting the knowledge from the other people.
Yeah,
and that's the whole point of just getting better. Like the beginning will be uncomfortable, but then as you start doing more reps and more reps and more reps, you start feeling more comfortable with it. But that's the point that most people don't want to get through, that uncomfort.
And that's all right, because you have to build through it, and that's just a part of life. But at an early time, just get ahead of it, because in your career, it's definitely a roadblock, because you don't meet the right people, and I just had to push that roadblock over as soon as I could. So I don't know what it was. It was just God telling me, hey, you got to step over this and just do it, or some other action. So
all right.
So if I could end this on a key piece of knowledge, it's just that stuff.
Yeah.
And plus, it's just about being just heartfelt, kind, being the best person you can be around these people that you're working around. I'm eternally grateful for the opportunities that I have here and forever will, because I'm halfway through this.
Yes.
And I'm brand new. Not brand new, but new in a sense where I'm still learning. And just keep your mind open about everything that you're going to do, whether you're an athlete, whether you're just an average person, average listener. It's just it's something that you can get along with no matter who you are. And that's what I try to bring to this episode, is just trying to figure out how I can relate this to what I'm doing and my own experience.
Perfect, so man. Love it. I don't even want to add anything to that. I think everything we've said here is very valuable, man. So I hope people get a lot of value and knowledge from that.
Yeah, hopefully,
we've definitely had. So now if you're fine with that, we can go through some quick fire questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So what's your favorite sport to photograph?
I always get that question. I love it, but I don't have one.
You don't have one?
It's more or less the team I'm covering.
Okay.
Because if the teams, I don't say this lightly. Well, I kind of do. If the team is not exactly good, or they're not they don't want to be there.
Yeah.
And I can sense that right off the bat. It
can be any sport.
Yeah, I'm not picking apart teams here.
Yeah.
And I've never had a team here that has done that to me.
Okay.
But in the past, it's like, I go out and do volunteer stuff maybe on my own time, and I can just sense that they don't want to be here. They don't appreciate what I might be bringing to the table or what they're going to be doing.
Okay.
And I can instantly just feel that off the bat, and I can talk to people, and I'm like, man, it's like, why do you even want to be here? It's like, I don't want to be here if you're not going to be here.
Yeah, it makes
but
a lot of sense.
I mean, if I'm locked down to if I could shoot or photograph a sport for a whole year, it's either baseball or basketball.
Okay.
One of those two.
Baseball is a long day, huh?
Yeah, I mean it's a long 9 innings. But yeah, baseball is really fun. I love capturing the pace and action in that sport. Basketball is fun too, at bigger venues.
A lot of action, a lot of shows.
Yeah. I mean, if it's just so loud.
Yeah.
And venues that are the bigger sizes, with different crowd levels.
Definitely.
It makes your ears ring when you're really in a venue and you're like, man, I can't hear a single thing right now. It's fun.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have a favorite sport. Okay. If anybody asks me that, I just say it depends on the team.
And it makes sense.
Yeah.
What would be the most challenging sport to capture the photos?
Man, it also just depends on where you're at. With gear, it varies. You could have any sort of gear and you could do somewhat the same job. Not always, not the same quality, I feel like. But, with higher action sports, you need different gear. You need fast lenses that can focus. You need fast cameras. You need to be on point with certain things. But the hardest or most challenging sport is definitely hockey.
Okay.
That's difficult because that sport never stops.
Yeah.
You don't have any time to stop and just take a breath. I mean,
you can barely see the little thing.
Yeah, the puck. Yeah, and I mean, it's challenging, but it's so rewarding. Like I love the sport of hockey, and I love photographing it. But it was my first time really ever photographing it this year with our teams at Indiana Tech, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. But then I got a hold of it. You're shooting through. You're photographing the sport through sometimes dirty or weird glass.
Yeah.
And it's just so fast. And I mean, you get to take a breath when they're doing puck drop and whatnot. But that's still very fast. So that's pretty challenging. If somebody picked up my camera with no experience, that's the sport I'd say, hey, watch out for this one.
You're also like kind of an athlete.
What's that?
You're also kind of an athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the most important thing, skill for photographers, in your opinion?
Like important skill?
Yeah, a photographer can have.
Knowing your camera, knowing whatever type of camera you have, knowing that you can get the job done no matter what camera you have.
Okay.
And I say that lightly because you can and can't sometimes. That's a little bit deeper of a conversation, but it depends on knowing your camera, knowing your settings.
Okay.
Know the sport you're going to try to get into. If you went into like a football game, and you don't know anything about the sport, good luck, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
And that comes with all sports. You go into a soccer game and you don't know really much about it. I mean, you just think it's running down the.
You don't know what are the right moments to capture, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know how to predict anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And with hockey, you can predict some things like that, and if you don't know it, like I did before the season started, I was lost. I was like, I don't know how to predict anything.
But
and
it comes back to like what we've talked about, like you start figuring stuff out. You first start as a rookie per se.
Yeah.
Then you start getting knowledge.
Yeah. So skill, that's just one thing, but understanding your gear, understanding what you can do with your gear, and just also having a personality to really just be outgoing. Like we touched on, that's one of the bigger things.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
If you were allowed to capture any historic sports moment, which one would you pick?
Yeah.
That's pretty fun. I like that question. I've thought about it, but I haven't picked an answer. Man, something to do with something about probably Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan era. That'd be pretty cool.
The shot.
Yeah. Because I look at that stuff. I look at different photographers' work from that era. I just go back and look at all the galleries and archival stuff. And I'm like, man. I mean, they were doing that stuff on film cameras.
Yeah.
Not digital cameras that are just faster, and you get, however many shots you get on a little SD card or an XQD card, but you get 10 shots out of a film roll.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that kind of partially because it wasn't really like that, but it was. I can compare it to that. But I don't know how it was like.
Okay.
But you look at those shots and you're like, man, that's really just history. You have the classics, like the Muhammad Ali stuff. I also think of
picture that he's like this.
Yeah, like Kobe's 60-point game.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool stuff.
Yeah, that's nice.
So that'd be pretty cool. But
I mean, probably in the future is gonna be an event that you're probably gonna be.
And and one of them was when Dalton Clark got her first triple-double.
Yeah. In the league, in the W.
Yeah. When they were actually playing against the Liberty with Sabrina, that was a game. That was definitely one of the ones where I'm like, this is an historic moment. I just captured it, and I got to recognize that. And I'm like, man, this meant more than the previous time I went here. So that's important stuff, and I like to capture that.
Yeah.
So
now I'm gonna ask you probably the answer. You already said it, but who's the favorite athlete that you've captured?
Here or at all?
Your career.
Oh man, that's no. This doesn't have to depend on how well they treated me or how well they've been connecting with me, but it probably Paul Skeens. That's pretty fun. Yeah, that's pretty fun.
MLB All-Star.
Yeah, because he went because when I covered him, he was previously minor leagues in Indianapolis, the Indians. He'd been there for I think not even 3 months, and they had sent him up to Pittsburgh, and he was ready.
Yeah.
And just to be able to capture that moment in time, or those 2 games where he was there, that was pretty cool, because you got to see him develop, and you got to see his process that he kept, going up to Pittsburgh with the Pirates. And I was like, he doesn't really change anything. He's the same person. I mean, different uniform, different team, but he's still the same person.
He was just going to the process. It was already ready.
Yeah. But everybody talks about how I've photographed Caitlin, and that's cool. But that's really cool, because it's women's sports, and that's a fundamental piece of where it is today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also look back on different people that I've covered. Paul Skeens is one of them. So.
Okay.
And if you weren't a photographer, which career would you pursue?
If I was not probably some sort of something like physical fitness, because we can get back on this in a minute, but I'm big into physical fitness as well. So I like to take care of my body as much as I can.
Yeah.
Whether that's trying to eat well or just working out.
Yeah.
Not as consistently as I should, but one of those. I like to just something, not like the doctor, but like more like a physical therapist maybe.
Okay.
That'd be cool, because you're still learning these different peoples, and you're still around an athlete.
Yeah.
You can combine the jobs together, and then you're like a
yeah. And then probably another one is probably like a broadcaster of some sort.
Okay.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah.
And what's one sport that you haven't covered but you want to? Or probably in any situation that you haven't had the chance to do it, but you want to be there.
So like sport or like team, kind of, or what?
Probably like what's one sport you have never photographed but you want to?
Okay.
Yeah.
If
there's any.
Man, I mean, I've covered all the basics that I have now. So
yeah, that's why I asked you. Like, then, if not, what event probably that you would be looking forward to?
Oh, probably a Super Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the bigger ones.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the biggest one I think about. Like a college football championship. Because they hold like the Big Ten Conference Championship in Indianapolis, and that's so close, and I just never got the opportunity to, and that's always a big one. I'm like, man, that's like right down the road. Like, I would love to cover that.
Be there, man.
Huh?
You'll definitely be there.
Yeah, and it's just, that's also knowing the right people, having a connection to go and cover it for. But yeah, just any big event that's historical is always
I think
one's on my radar.
Yeah, with your mindset, with the frame of mind you have, with the intent you have.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep doing what you're doing. You're just gonna keep progressing.
Yeah.
In a matter of, I don't know, even if it's in like 6 years, you're still only gonna be 25 and having the chance probably to be in a Super Bowl. I think that's the biggest thing for probably a photographer. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean,
sport photographer.
Yeah, and the experience goes down to different ages, but there have been people my age that have had these bigger opportunities. Yeah. Like what I just mentioned, like a championship of that caliber, it's happened.
Yeah.
But I look at that and I say that could have been me, but I was not the fastest gun.
You're living your progress, and there's nothing wrong with
that. Yeah, and it comes with time, and I've learned to understand that as I get here and as in life, it comes with time, and it's a process, and it's just truly a matter of how you can just go back to your fundamentals and just realize what you're trying to do.
Perfect. No, man, it was great talking to you, man. I really enjoyed the podcast. I really love the mindset you have, the way you approach things, and also just the hunger that you have that I can tell, and also by the things that you've done. I really appreciate people that from a young age start doing things to like change the narrative of their life. They do it with intent. They do it the right way and with the right mindset. So I really appreciate you for that, and for also coming here, approaching to us to come in here to the podcast. Yeah. I'm thankful for that, man. Now, where can people go and see your work? Maybe where to follow?
Yeah. No, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to for people to see your work. where everybody can see the things that you do, maybe your social media, your website. You can tell the people so they can go there.
Yeah, it's just Dalton Clark Photography on all my social medias. I have a website that's publicized. It's just Dalton Clark Photography again. I have my own domain, so I have my setup. So that's where you can kind of reach me and see my work. So yeah, that's kind of where the groundwork comes up. But I post my best images. I just update on behind the scenes stuff, life in general. So yeah, it's kind of where you can reach me as well. So
Yeah,
Great, brother.
check it out.
Yeah.
awesome, thank you.
Yeah,
Now, brother,
Appreciate
it was nice really speaking to
Yeah,
you, man.
thank you.
Appreciate you for being here,
Absolutely.
brother.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Awesome, cool.
See you in the next one.
Thank you.